Fired federal worker Max Schroeder returned to Capitol Hill this week, making sure this experience a week earlier with Republican Senator Jim Banks was not the final word in his untimely termination.
Hi, I was a worker at HHS. I was fired illegally on February 14th.
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it?
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it.
Dude, that's
wow.
so sad.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Why did I deserve it?
Because you seem like a clown.
This week, Schroeder was joined by a group of other fired federal workers, and they stopped by Senator Banks' office to confront him, but were only allowed to meet with the senator's staff instead of the man himself. And former Health and Human Services budget analyst Max Schroeder joins us now.
Once the clip went viral, and frankly, I thought it was despicable. When I first saw it, I was like, vote these people out. But when the clip went viral, you know, I used to be a staffer for a number of different elected officials. And when nothing like that has ever happened to one of my candidates or anybody I worked for. But there have been things that happen, and I'm like, oh, we need to pick up the phone and call. Or did anyone call you?
No, and I'm frankly not surprised that they did. I think because if you saw his responses, he really doubled down on what he was saying. He sort of had this thing about, you know, everyone being on the Hill as like a woke activist and all this stuff. But I think what I try to hone in on is I wasn't looking for him to tell me, why did I lose my job? When am I going to get reinstated? I wanted him to know what he's going to do for his constituents when they have all their services cut. So, you know, this isn't really about me. It's not about, you know, what he said. It's about the fact that he does not have a plan in place and just kind of blatantly supports these cuts with no rhyme or reason.
So to your point, let's listen to Jim Banks in his own words, not backing down.
I won't back down. I won't apologize for it. I support President Trump and the DOGE effort 100% to cut wasteful spending and woke jobs out of the federal government, and we're just getting started.
Okay.
I thought he was a budget analyst. How is being a budget analyst woke? What?
So you know, look, this is the kind of performative BS from people who have little substance to offer to a serious conversation when confronted by the reality of their actions or the reality of their inactions. As a federal employee, you have served people in this country without question, without particular favor. He is sitting in a position of power and authority and has shown himself to be a very small man. That kind of comment does not advance the conversation. That comment was made to appease Donald Trump. So when it got back, he doesn't seem like he's giving into wokeism, but rather standing up to it. How does this for the federal employees that are still in service, how do they see themselves moving in this system or trying to hold on to their positions? You're now on a different front line fighting and trying to, get yourself reinstated, but as well protect others. What are you hearing from the federal workforce that's there now, whether it's on the Hill or in other agencies around the country, in the network of federal employees as they're watching the dissemination of government and the elimination of their jobs?
Well, I think, a lot of people are really holding on by a thread, even if they're there for the next 60 days. Maybe they've been part of the rifts and they're going to get fired in the next 2 months. I think it's hard to know that the work that they've, maybe spent their entire careers for is going to just be thrown out the door. So even if they're working on putting grants out the door today and for the next couple months to make sure these programs are running, there's really no plan for after those folks are riffed. So I know people who've been fired, reinstated, and then fired again. And I think just this pandemonium really makes it concerning for the people who rely on these services. We're talking folks who are waiting in line for hours to receive Social Security checks. Over 70 million Americans get Social Security benefits. We have people, over 6 million Americans who rely on federal funding for heating. And they just fired all of the staff in that office. So, I think for people who are there, it's really just making sure that they can do whatever they can to keep the programs running that they have the capacity to. But beyond that, there really isn't a plan, and it's really concerning to know that not just Jim Banks, but a lot of other senators support what's happening.
Let's walk through the TikTok again. You show up on Capitol Hill, which is your right as an American citizen to go to confront powerful lawmakers, and said, can you explain your decision that has an impact on my life and on communities I care about? You then are belittled, words that I would not have my own children use in response to another human being. And you go back to really sort of restart the conversation. When you sit down with the staffers, given that you weren't given access to the senator himself, was the cruelty and the condescension we saw from the senator repeated by the staffers, or were they willing to listen? And was there anything you said that you felt broke through?
So I think I was glad that I went there with about 30 other fired federal workers, because I really wanted to show this isn't about me. If you think that this is just about my job, I want you to know the scope of services that everyone here is not just providing to the constituents in Indiana, but also to millions of American people. And frankly, his staff was really receptive to what we were saying. I don't know if they were just listening and pretending to take notes.
They're getting the constituent calls and facts.
So what were the staff saying?
They were taking notes. I think when they realized who I was, they frankly seemed pretty embarrassed, but they couldn't say anything because they represent the senators. So I feel like there was some cognitive dissonance where they were realizing, oh, wow, these are people who are doing really important work, but we have to stand behind this guy who doesn't care
Just
at all.
called you a
How
clown.
would you explain to someone in Indiana what it means for them that you are no longer in your position?
So for me specifically, I was helping get funding out the door for programs that help older adults and people with disabilities. So
Sounds very woke to me.
exactly. So yeah, doing a lot of spreadsheets and looking at grants. And I think that everybody knows someone who has had needed end of life care. So I think really making that connection between people who are working in the federal government to the services that they're receiving. So if you need a caregiver at your home, if you receive meals from Meals on Wheels, if your family member is at the end of life and needs emergency care, without these people who are making those programs happen, getting that funding out the door, those people are just not going to have the services they need. And this is really a matter of life and death.
Max Schroeder, thank you so much for showing up in this critical moment. Thank you for being with us.
He doesn't look like a clown to me.
Nope.
I'll tell you who does, though.